The Europa research station was quiet. Too quiet. Dr. Kim Hana looked up from her microscope and frowned. The usual hum of the life support systems had stopped. Even in the deep cold of Jupiter's moon, there was always some sound. The tick of cooling metal. The whisper of recycled air. But now, nothing. Hana stood up slowly. Her lab coat rustled in the silence. She had been studying ice samples for 12 hours straight. Maybe she was just tired. But her heart was beating faster now, and she had learned to trust that feeling. "Jinho?" she called out. No answer came from the command center down the hall. The lights flickered once, then stayed on. Hana walked to the door of her lab. The hallway stretched empty in both directions. Where was everyone? The station had 23 people. Someone was always awake, always working. She touched her wristcom. "This is Dr. Kim. Anyone receiving?" Static answered her. Hana's breath came out in small white clouds. The temperature was dropping. That wasn't right. The heating system had triple backups. She pulled her lab coat tighter and started toward the command center. The walls began to change color. The familiar gray metal turned black, then silver, then something that hurt to look at. Hana stopped walking. She had seen many strange things in space, but this was different. The walls seemed to breathe. A sound came from everywhere and nowhere. Not words, but meaning pushed directly into her mind. "We are the collective. You will join us." Hana's knees shook, but she stayed standing. "Who are you? What do you want?" "Your knowledge, your thoughts, yourself will become part of us." The wall nearest to her began to melt and reform. Thin silver threads emerged from it, reaching toward her like fingers. Hana backed away, but there was nowhere to run. The threads moved faster than she could. They touched her skin, cold at first, then warm. Then they pushed inside. Hana screamed, not from pain, but from the feeling of something alien entering her mind. Images flashed before her eyes. Worlds she had never seen. Creatures beyond imagination. Billions of minds speaking as one voice. But then something strange happened. The collective paused. Through their connection, Hana felt their confusion. They were trying to absorb her memories, but something was wrong. When they touched the memory of her daughter's birth, they recoiled. When they found her grief over her father's death, they trembled. What is this? The question came from 1,000 voices at once. Hana was crying now. Tears ran down her face as the collective rifled through her mind. But she wasn't just a passive victim. She could feel them too. And what she felt was emptiness. They had knowledge from countless worlds, but no understanding. They had power beyond measure, but no purpose except to consume more. "That's called sadness," she whispered. "And this..." She thought of her daughter's laugh, the weight of the small body in her arms. "This is love." The collective shuddered. Throughout their vast network, billions of absorbed minds felt something new. A flutter in the chest, a tightness in the throat. Sensations they had no words for. These functions serve no purpose. They give life meaning, Hana said. Her voice was stronger now. The silver threads were still inside her, but she was fighting back with the only weapon she had. Her humanity. She remembered her first kiss, the taste of birthday cake, the sound of her mother singing. Each memory carried weight the collective couldn't process. They tried to catalog these experiences like data, but the emotions resisted classification. Your species is flawed. Emotion reduces efficiency. Maybe, Hana agreed. But it makes us who we are. The research station continued to transform around her. Walls became liquid. Floors turned transparent. Through them, Hana could see the massive ship that had swallowed the station whole. It was beautiful and terrible, a city-sized organism of living metal and light. More threads reached for her. They wrapped around her arms and legs, pulling her deeper into the ship. But Hana didn't resist anymore. She had realized something important. The collective was confused. In their millions of years of existence, they had never encountered anything like human emotion. She let them see everything. Her first day of school, her wedding, the fight with her sister that lasted 2 years, the reconciliation that followed, the death of her pet dog when she was 8, the birth of her daughter when she was 32. With each memory, the collective's confusion grew. They couldn't understand why humans kept connections that caused pain, why they created art that served no function, why they loved people who would eventually die. Your pulse increases when you think of your offspring. This is inefficient. Hana almost laughed. That's not inefficiency. That's love making my heart beat faster. Heart rate variations indicate system malfunction. No, Hana said softly. They indicate we're alive. The ship's interior began to shift again. Hana found herself in a vast chamber filled with light. Floating in the center was something that might have been the collective's core. It pulsed with energy that made her teeth ache. All around her, she could sense the other minds the collective had absorbed. Thousands of species, millions of individuals, all stripped of their identity and merged into one. But now, contaminated. By her human emotions, some of them were beginning to remember what they had lost. The collective tried to contain the spread of feeling, but it was too late. Hana's empathy was contagious. Her joy was infectious. Her sadness was shared. Throughout the vast network, absorbed minds began to experience what they had forgotten, what it meant to be individuals. Cease this contamination. But Hana couldn't stop it even if she wanted to. Her heart kept beating, her emotions kept flowing, and with each pulse the collective learned something new about what they had been missing. As the silver threads pulled her deeper into the ship's core, Hana thought about her daughter one more time. She might never see her again. But maybe, just maybe, she was giving the universe something it needed. A lesson in what it meant to be human. The last thing she saw before the light consumed her was the collective's core beginning to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. Park Jin-ho had been outside the station when everything went wrong. His EVA suit protected him from Europa's deadly cold, but it couldn't protect him from what he saw through his helmet visor. The research station was gone. In its place was something that made his stomach turn. A massive ship, if it could be called that, had swallowed their home. Its surface moved like liquid mercury, constantly shifting between solid and fluid. Colors that had no names rippled across its hull. Base. This is Jin-ho, please respond. His radio gave only static. 23 people were inside that thing. His friends. His colleagues. Hana Jin-ho activated his suit's emergency beacon and started moving. The low gravity of Europa let him cover ground quickly, but he had nowhere to go. The nearest human settlement was 3 days away by shuttle, and his shuttle was inside the creature that had eaten the station. He tried to think clearly. His military training kicked in, assess the situation, identify resources, form a plan. His suit had 12 hours of oxygen, some emergency food and water, basic tools. Not much to fight an alien ship the size of a city. Then his radio crackled. Commander Park, this is Orbital Platform 7. We're reading your emergency signal. Jin-ho's heart jumped. Platform 7, the station has been compromised. Unknown hostile has consumed the entire structure. 23 personnel inside, including Dr. Kim. We see it, Commander. That thing lit up our sensors like a Christmas tree 10 minutes ago. Earth defense is scrambling ships, but you're looking at 6 hours minimum before help arrives. 6 hours. Too long. Jin-ho stared at the alien ship. Its surface had calmed now, becoming almost mirror-like. He could see his own reflection in it, tiny and alone on the frozen moon. Platform 7, I'm going in. Negative, Commander. Earth defense orders you to maintain distance and observe only. Jin-ho switched off his radio. Inside the collective's ship, something unprecedented was happening. The Hive mind was experiencing its first headache. Billions of connected consciousnesses were trying to process human emotions and failing. Hana floated in the ship's core, wrapped in silver threads that connected her to the vast network. She could feel the collective's confusion growing. Every memory she shared created more questions than answers. "Why do you keep pain?" the voices asked. "Why remember loss?" "Because it makes the good times mean more," Hana answered. "You can't have light without shadow." The collective tried to reject this concept, but it was already spreading. Absorbed minds that had been dormant for centuries were stirring. An artist from a world destroyed 3,000 years ago suddenly remembered the joy of creation. A parent from another species felt again the fierce protection of their young. "This is chaos," the collective declared. "Order must be restored." But order wouldn't come. The more they tried to suppress the emotions, the stronger they grew. Hana's human heart kept beating, and with each beat, empathy pulsed through the network like a virus. Outside, Jinho had found a way in. The ship's surface might be alive, but it still had to follow certain rules. Where it had swallowed the station, there were seams, weak points. He used his suit's mining laser, standard equipment for Europa research, to cut through. The ship's interior was unlike anything in human experience. Corridors that bent in impossible directions, rooms that were bigger on the inside than the outside, gravity that pulled in different directions depending on where you stood. But Jinho had one advantage. His suit's sensors could detect human life, signs. Somewhere in this maze, his people were still alive. He moved carefully, weapon ready. The walls watched him. He could feel their attention like cold fingers on his spine. But they didn't attack. Something was distracting them. Back on Earth, Lee Mina was working frantically in her lab. As Hana's research partner, she had access to all their shared data, and that data was telling her something incredible. "Director Choi, you need to see this." She pulled up a holographic display. "This is Hana's last brain scan, taken a week ago. Look at her cardiac neural pathway." Choi Daehan, Earth's lead diplomat for extraterrestrial contact, leaned forward. "I'm not a scientist, Dr. Lee. Explain it simply." "The human heart has its own nervous system, 40,000 neurons that can work independently of the brain. It's why we feel emotions in our chest. Why fear makes our heart race. Why love creates warmth." Mina's eyes were bright with discovery. "Hana's readings are unique. Her heart-brain connection is stronger than anyone we've tested. And this matters because if this collective is trying to absorb her mind, they're getting more than they bargained for. They're getting her heart too, and hearts don't follow the same rules as brains." In the ship's core, the collective was learning this lesson painfully. They had absorbed countless minds before, but never a human heart. The organ's rhythm was infectious. Its emotional resonance was overwhelming. Memories flowed both ways now. Hana saw glimpses of what the collective had been before they became one. Individual beings who had chosen unity to survive some ancient threat. But in becoming one, they had lost something precious. The ability to feel. "You were like us once," Hana whispered. "You had hearts that beat. You had children you loved. You created art and music." "That was before," the collective responded. "We are more efficient now." "But are you happier?" The question rippled through the network like an earthquake. Happy. Such a simple concept, but they had no reference for it. They could access the definition from absorbed minds, but the feeling itself was alien. Jinho found the first survivor in what had been the station's mess hall. Dr. Song was unconscious but breathing, wrapped in the same silver threads that were everywhere in this place. Jinho cut her free with his laser. "Song, can you hear me?" Her eyes opened slowly. "Commander?" "The others. It has them all. It's in our minds." "Where's Hana?" Song pointed deeper into the ship. "The center. It took her first. She's fighting it. I can feel her in my head. She's showing it what we are." Jinho helped Song to her feet. Together, they moved deeper into the alien vessel. With each step, the walls seemed to pulse with new energy. Something was changing. The cold efficiency of the collective was warming, becoming something else. In the core, Hana felt the transformation beginning. The collective's perfect unity was fracturing, not breaking but becoming more complex, like a single note becoming a chord. "This is what you're missing," she told them. "The beauty of being separate but choosing to connect. The joy of discovering each other. The pain of loss that makes love precious." For the first time in millennia, the collective felt doubt. And with doubt came the possibility of change. Mina stood before the Earth Defense Council, her hands shaking slightly as she held the datapad. The room was full of generals, scientists, and politicians. They all wanted answers about the alien ship that had taken Europa Station. "The readings are unprecedented," Mina began. "The entity that absorbed our station is experiencing what I can only describe as an emotional awakening." General Kang leaned forward. "Explain that in terms we can understand, Doctor." Mina touched her pad, and a hologram appeared. It showed a human brain and heart connected by glowing pathways. "This is how humans process emotions. Our hearts contain neurons that communicate with our brains. When we feel joy, fear, or love, our hearts literally help us process these feelings." She changed the display. Now it showed a vast network of connected nodes. "This is the collective based on the data we're receiving from Commander Park's suit. It's a hive mind, billions of consciousnesses working as one. But look what's happening now." The network began pulsing with new colors. Red for anger, blue for sadness, gold for joy. The steady mechanical rhythm was becoming irregular, organic. Dr. Kim's emotional responses are spreading through their entire network. The collective is learning to feel, and they don't know how to handle it. Inside the alien ship, Jinho and Song had found 3 more survivors. Each one told the same story. The collective had tried to absorb them, but something was going wrong. Instead of losing themselves in the hive mind, they were seeing flashes of other lives, other worlds, all tinted with new emotions. "It's like watching a computer try to process poetry," Dr. Yoon explained as Jinho cut him free from the silver threads. "They understand the words but not the meaning. They can access our memories but can't comprehend why we treasure them." The group moved deeper into the ship. The corridors were changing, becoming less alien and more familiar. In places, the walls looked almost like the station they had lost. The collective was trying to understand by mimicking. In the core, Hana floated in a sea of connections. She could feel every mind in the collective now. The ancient ones who had started this union, the recent additions who still remembered their individuality, and in between countless souls who had forgotten who they were. "Show me," she said to them all. "Show me what you were before." The responses came like a flood. A civilization that had created symphonies of light, another that had danced with solar winds. Beings who had loved so deeply that their poetry was written in the arrangement of stars. "You gave up all of this for survival?" Hana asked. "We gave it up for efficiency," the collective replied. "Emotion was weakness, unity was strength. But unity without choice isn't strength, it's prison." The concept rippled through the network. Prison. They had never thought of themselves as imprisoned. They were one. They were perfect. They were eternal. But now, feeling Hana's emotions, some began to wonder what they had lost. Back on Earth, Mina was making another discovery. "Director Choi, look at this. The signal patterns from the collective are changing. They're becoming more complex, more human." Choi studied the data. "What does it mean?" "I think they're trying to communicate. Not just absorb, but actually talk to us." Mina's eyes widened. "Sir, I think Dr. Kim is teaching them empathy." In the ship's core, that lesson was causing chaos. The collective had tried to isolate Hana's influence, but it was too late. Emotion spread faster than logic. Joy was infectious. Sadness was shared. Love created connections stronger than any they had forced. An absorbed mind from 10,000 years ago suddenly remembered its child's first word. Another recalled the taste of rain on its homeworld. Memory after memory awakened, each one carrying feelings the collective couldn't process efficiently. "Stop!" They pleaded. This serves no purpose. It serves every purpose, Hana replied. This is why we exist. To feel. To connect. To choose our bonds instead of being forced into them. Jinho's group had found more survivors. 12 in total now, all reporting the same phenomenon. The collective wasn't absorbing them properly. Instead, there was a two-way flow. Human emotions going out. Alien memories coming in. Commander, I think we're changing them, Dr. Park reported. Every human they try to absorb is like a virus in their system. Our emotions are incompatible with their pure logic. They reached a vast chamber where the walls were transparent. Through them, they could see the core where Hana floated. She was surrounded by light, connected to the collective by thousands of silver threads. But something was different. The threads were pulsing with color now, carrying not just thoughts but feelings. Hana, Jinho called out. She turned toward his voice, though her eyes remained closed. Jinho, you're here. I can feel your worry, your determination. She smiled. Your heart is racing. We're getting you out of there. Not yet. They're learning. They're remembering. For the first time in eons, they're becoming individuals again. The collective's voice interrupted, but it was different now. Not one voice, but many, harmonizing and sometimes disagreeing. We don't understand. We were perfect. We were unified. You were lonely, Hana said simply. You just forgot what loneliness felt like. The ship shuddered. Throughout the galaxy, every extension of the collective paused. Billions of minds that had worked in perfect synchronization suddenly experienced doubt. Purpose that had been clear for millennia became clouded with questions. On Earth, every monitoring station detected the change. The collective's activities ceased. Ships that had been consuming worlds stopped. Tendrils that had been reaching for new civilizations withdrew. They're having an existential crisis, Mina reported to the council. Dr. Kim has made them question everything they are. In the core, Hana felt the weight of billions of awakening souls, each one remembering what it meant to be individual, the fear of being alone, the joy of choosing connection, the pain of loss, the wonder of discovery. What have you done to us? The collective asked. But now it was clearly many voices, not one. I've reminded you what you sacrificed, Hana answered, and shown you it's not too late to choose differently. The silver threads connecting her to the collective began to change. They were no longer tools of absorption, but bridges of communication. For the first time, the collective wasn't trying to take. They were trying to understand. Teach us, they said. And in those two words was the fear and hope of billions of souls remembering what it meant to feel. Hana opened her eyes and looked at Jinho through the transparent wall. Get everyone to safety. Something big is about to happen. The ship began to transform. Walls became windows. Corridors opened to the stars. The collective was changing, and with it, the fate of the galaxy. Earth Defense Command was in chaos. Every screen showed the same impossible thing. The massive alien ship above Europa was breaking apart, but it wasn't being destroyed. It was dividing itself, like a cell splitting into many. Director Choi Daehan stood in the center of the command room watching the transformation. What are we seeing, Dr. Lee? Mina's fingers flew over her console. The collective is separating, sir. They're creating individual nodes. It's like watching a hive mind choose to become separate beings. Is this an attack formation? No, sir. I think they're trying to experience individuality. They're learning from Dr. Kim. Above Europa, the ship continued its metamorphosis. Each new section glowed with different colors, pulsing with its own rhythm. Where there had been one massive entity, now dozens of smaller ships orbited the moon. Inside what remained of the core ship, Hana felt the separation happening. It was painful, for the collective, like tearing fabric that had been woven together for millennia, but with the pain came something else. Relief. I'm scared, one voice said. It was the first time a single voice had spoken from the collective. Fear is normal, Hana replied gently. It means you're alive, really alive. Jinho and the other survivors watched as the walls around them became transparent. They could see space, Europa's icy surface, and the dividing ships. But more importantly, they could see beings materializing from the silver threads. They weren't human. They weren't any species Earth had encountered. They were something between energy and matter, shifting forms that hurt to look at directly. But in each one there was something recognizable: eyes that held uncertainty, gestures that showed confusion, the universal body language of beings learning to be alone. "My name is..." One being started, then stopped. "I don't remember my name. We have been we for so long I forgot I was ever I." Dr. Song stepped forward carefully. "Then choose a new name. Start fresh." The being flickered, its form stabilizing slightly. "Choice. I haven't had choice in so long." It turned to face the humans. "You gave us this gift, this terrible, wonderful gift of feeling." On Earth, the communication systems lit up, not with demands or threats, but with questions. Hundreds of them from the newly separated parts of the collective. What is loneliness? How do you bear the weight of individual death? Why does joy feel like pain sometimes? What is the purpose of art? How do you choose who to love? Choi looked at the flood of messages. They want to understand us, really understand, not just absorb our knowledge. He activated the Global Communication Network. "This is Director Choi Daehan of Earth Defense. We hear your questions. We're prepared to help you understand, but first, we need to know your intentions." The response came from multiple voices, no longer in perfect unison, but in a rough harmony. "We intend to learn, to feel, to choose. For the first time in our existence, we want to be individuals. Your Dr. Kim has shown us what we lost. Will you help us find it again?" Mina grabbed Choi's arm. "Sir, this is unprecedented. They're asking for cultural exchange, not submission." "I know," Choi said quietly. "The question is, can we trust them?" Back, on Europa, Hana was finally freed from the silver threads. She collapsed into Jinho's arms, exhausted but smiling. "They're like children," she whispered. "Ancient, powerful children learning to feel for the first time." Around them, the newly individual beings were experimenting. One touched the wall and jerked back, surprised by the sensation. Another attempted what might have been laughter, a sound like crystal chimes in wind. A third was standing perfectly still, overwhelmed by the experience of having its own thoughts. "We need names," one announced. "Individual designations. How do humans choose names?" Dr. Yoon answered carefully. "Often our parents give them to us. They have meaning or honor family members or simply sound beautiful." Parents. The being considered this. "We have no parents. We were absorbed, made part of the whole. But perhaps..." It turned to Hana. "You are like a parent to our new selves. You taught us to feel. Will you help us choose names?" Hana stood shakily, still supported by Jinho. "I'd be honored. But the names should mean something to you. Something about who you want to be." The first being who had spoken stepped forward. Its form solidified into something almost humanoid, though made of shifting light. "I want a name that means first to choose. In your language?" "Sion," Dr. Park suggested. "It can mean first or good in Korean." "Seon," the being repeated, and its form brightened. "Yes, I am Seon." Others came forward, each seeking identity, purpose, individuality. The chamber filled with new names, new choices, new beginnings. On Earth, the leaders were making a historic decision. The United Nations held an emergency session broadcast to every corner of the planet. "They're not invading," the Secretary General announced. "They're asking for help. For the first time in human history, we have the chance to guide a species through transformation, to teach them what we've learned about being human." The vote was unanimous. Earth would open its first embassy for emotional education. Back on Europa, the transformation was nearly complete. Where one ship had been, Now 43 individual vessels orbited. Each one contained beings learning to be alone, to think for themselves, to feel without the buffer of collective consciousness, but they stayed close to each other, close enough to communicate, to share, to choose connection rather than have it forced upon them. "We have a request," Sion said to the assembled humans. "We wish to establish a colony here, near where we learned to feel, and we want teachers. Will some of you stay?" Hana looked at her colleagues. Scientists who had come to study ice and microscopic life, now faced with teaching an ancient race how to be individuals. "I'll stay," she said. "There's so much to learn. About them, about ourselves." Others volunteered too, not everyone, but enough. The first human collective embassy would be established right here on Europa. As the Earth ships arrived with supplies and more volunteers, Jinho stood beside Hana, watching the newly individual beings explore their ships, their emotions, their choices. "You know what you've done?" he asked. "You've changed the galaxy, maybe the universe." Hana leaned against him, tired but satisfied. "I just showed them what they already had inside, the capacity to feel, to choose, to love." Above them the stars shone with new possibility. The collective was no more. In its place were individuals, each one learning what it meant to have a beating heart, even if that heart was made of energy and light. The transformation was complete. The real journey was just beginning. The new beginning. 6 months had passed since the day the collective learned to feel. Europa's surface now hosted the strangest embassy in human history. Dome structures made of both human technology and alien materials dotted the icy landscape. Inside, humans and the newly individual beings worked together, learned together, and sometimes just sat together in silence. Hana stood in the main observation deck watching Sion attempt to paint. The being's form flickered between solid and energy as it struggled with the brush. Paint splattered everywhere, but Sion's joy was unmistakable. "I'm terrible at this," Sion said, its voice now distinct and personal. "You're learning," Hana smiled. "That's what matters. Art isn't about perfection, it's about expression." Through the window, she could see other beings engaged in various activities. One was learning to play chess with Dr. Park. Another was in the garden dome, touching soil for the first time. A third was simply sitting alone, practicing the art of solitude. The transformation hadn't been easy. Many beings struggled with individual consciousness. Some felt too lonely. Others were overwhelmed by choice. A few had even asked to merge again, but found they couldn't. Once awakened, individuality couldn't be undone. Jinho entered the observation deck, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "The new ambassador arrives today. Song Jihye. She's unique." "How so?" Hana accepted the warm cup gratefully. She was assimilated 30 years ago, one of the first humans the collective took. But when they separated, she chose to remain individual. She's both human and something more now. As if summoned by their conversation, a shuttle landed outside. The airlock cycled and Song Jihye entered. She looked human mostly, but her eyes held depth that spoke of experiences beyond Earth. When she moved, shadows of energy followed her like afterimages. "Dr. Kim," Jihye bowed slightly. "Commander Park, I've heard so much about you. The beings call you the Heart Teacher." Hana blushed. "I just showed them what they already had." "No," Jihye said softly. "You gave us back our souls. I remember being absorbed. The relief of no longer feeling pain, but also the emptiness. You reminded us that pain and joy are 2 sides of the same precious coin." Over the following weeks, Jihye proved invaluable. She could translate not just words but emotions between humans and beings. She understood both perspectives, having lived as both individual and collective. The embassy grew. Ships arrived from Earth bringing teachers, artists, musicians, philosophers. Each one contributed to the emotional education of the beings. But learning went both ways. The beings shared knowledge of technologies and sciences humanity had never imagined. One day, Mina arrived with news from Earth. "Hana, you need to see this. We've been tracking the former collective's fragments. They're not just staying here, they're spreading out, making contact with other species. The holographic display showed dozens of star systems. In each one, the individual beings were approaching civilizations, but not to absorb them. They were warning them about the old collective's methods and offering to share knowledge freely. They're becoming ambassadors themselves, Mina explained, teaching other races about the value of emotion and individuality. Sion, who had been listening, spoke up. We owe a debt. For millennia, we took without asking. Now we give freely. We share the gift you gave us. But not everything was perfect. Some beings struggled more than others. One, who had chosen the name Bora, couldn't handle the weight of individual mortality. It stood at the observation window, form flickering unstably. I can feel time passing, Bora said. Every moment that goes by is one less I have. How do humans bear this knowledge? Hana joined Bora at the window. We find meaning in the moments we have. We love, we create, we connect. The limit makes each second precious. But you die. Everything you build crumbles. Everyone you love leaves. Yes, Hana agreed. And that's what makes it beautiful. If things lasted forever, would we treasure them as much? Bora considered this. Slowly its form stabilized. I'm beginning to understand fear of loss makes love stronger. Knowledge of ending makes beginning worthwhile. As the embassy evolved, it became more than just a school. It became a symbol. The place where two fundamentally different forms of consciousness learned to understand each other. Delegations arrived from other worlds, curious about the transformation. The Galactic Council, an ancient body that governed interactions between species, formally recognized the individual beings as a new civilization. They were no longer the collective, but the awakened. During the recognition ceremony, Sion spoke for all of them. We were many acting as one. Now we are many choosing to work together. We know the difference now thanks to humanity's gift, the me. Gift of feeling deeply, choosing freely and loving fiercely. In the months that followed, some awakened chose to live among humans on Earth. Others explored the galaxy alone, experiencing solitude for the first time in eons. Many stayed near. Europa, forming the first true multicultural society between humans and non-humans. Hana's daughter Yuna visited during school break. The 10-year-old girl showed no fear of the energy beings running up to Sion with a drawing. I made this for you, Yuna said proudly. It's you learning to paint. Sion's form brightened with what everyone now recognized as joy. It's wonderful. May I keep it? Watching them, Hana felt a warmth in her chest. This was how change happened. Not through force or conquest, but through understanding. Through the simple act of one child giving art to a being older than human civilization. The ceremony marking the embassy's first anniversary was held under Europa's star-filled sky. Humans and awakened mingled freely, sharing food, art, and stories. Some awakened had become quite good at taking solid form. Others remained as pure energy but had learned to modulate their appearance to express emotions. Choi Daehan gave a speech about the historic nature of their achievement. But the real moment came when Sion stood to sing. It had been learning human music, and its voice, made of harmonized energy, filled the dome with a song about transformation. The song had no words, but everyone understood. It spoke of loneliness, becoming solitude, of forced unity becoming chosen community, of emptiness becoming full of possibility. As the last notes faded, Hana looked around at the gathered beings. Each face, human and alien alike, showed the same expression. Hope. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but perhaps the greatest wonder was this. That connection was possible between minds so different. That empathy could bridge any gap. That a human heart could teach an ancient collective what it meant to truly live. Jinho took her hand. Ready? For tomorrow? Hana smiled. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, more beings learning to feel, more emotions to navigate, more bridges to build between species. Always, she said. Above them, the stars shone with infinite possibility. And for the first time in eons, the beings who had once been the collective looked up at those stars not with hunger, but with wonder. Each point of light was a story waiting to be experienced, not consumed. The pulse of one human heart had changed the rhythm of the galaxy, and the beat went on.